All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started today with our morning Bible class. Today, I'm going to change it up a little bit and switch it up. So, lucky for y'all won't have to hear me talk today. But what we'll be doing is we'll be watching a video of a series that Brother Allen and also Brother Gene told me about that was going on up in Dayton. And there's one of them in particular about DNA. So we're not getting into the genetics part of it in this part of the course, but there's a man named Buddy Payne who came up and he was speaking in at Cornerstone Church in Dayton, and he did an excellent job of explaining DNA and junk DNA and why it's important. And so we're going to switch it up. It's about an hour long video, so we'll watch this. We'll finish it up on Wednesday. But that's what we'll be doing today. And then we'll jump back into fossils. We've got one more topic with fossils, kind of continuing what we finished off last time, and then that'll be it for our series on fossils. Before we get started, though, let's remember those who are in need of prayers. Good to see Sister Debbie back. Let's continue to pray for her and everyone else who has had surgeries and are recovering from those. There are many that are dealing with cancer, so Brother Stan, Brother David, Sister Helen, Sue Robinson, who is Tracy Taylor's mom, and then there's others. I don't have my other paper that I had it written down on, but others who are dealing with cancer. Those who have chronic health issues, traveling, anyone who's going to be traveling. My boys will be traveling this week. They're going out of town to North Carolina. Yeah. Okay. All right, so Brother Albert's holding a gospel meeting north of Columbus, and let's pray for him that things will go well. Anyone else that we need to our prayers? Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's continue to pray for Sister Sharon's mom with the issues that she's having with diabetes. She says they're looking at amputation now around the calf area, and then if there's more infection, then it could be more. So let's continue to pray for her. Continue to pray for Brother Larry that his pituitary and the tumor that's on there will improve, not get any worse. Anyone else? Okay. I'll go ahead and lead us in prayer, and then we will I'll play this video for us. Start watching it. All right, let's pray. All right, Father in heaven, thank you for all of your blessings. Thank you for being our God, for being our Father, for treating us as your children, and for allowing us to be your children when we know that we don't deserve anything but destruction, but you sent your Son to come and to provide a way for us to spend our eternity with you if we'll take that opportunity. Pray that you'll be with us, be with those who we've mentioned. Please be with Sister Sharon's mom as she's facing amputation for the diabetes. Pray that you'll help her. Be with the doctors, the nurses, and be with her body and help it to heal and help the infections to go away. Be with her immune system, and do all the things that are necessary for her to eliminate any further amputations and help her in any ways that are needed. Pray for those who are traveling. Father, pray for those who are battling cancer, everyone who is recovering from surgeries. And I pray that as we watch this video today, that we will learn, and that the information that's presented here will be beneficial for building faith, and for giving us confidence in you and your word and what you said, and give us confidence to share this information with others as well. Father, thank you again for waking us up. Thank you for your Son. He sent down here to die for us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so again, this is Buddy Payne, and I will, let's see. And then again, it's a video that's about an hour long, a little bit over an hour, and so we won't finish it all today. But junk DNA, some of you may have heard of it. He'll do a good job of explaining what it is and why it's important and significant. But this is was a great video, and he does a much better job of explaining it and breaking it all down than I would. So I'm going to show this one since we won't get into genetics much with this. And so let's go ahead and
Glad you're with us
this.
again tonight. Thank you so much for your attendance so faithfully throughout this month. And this has been material. It's a little heavier than normal, don't you think? But I think you've been a very good class and attentive, and so I appreciate that so much. And I hope it's come across. I'm enthusiastic about this. You get that? And not all of you are that enthusiastic about this. I understand that, and I don't expect that. But I do feel like what I've been privileged to do in my life is to learn more about God's world than probably you ever want to know. And the more I learn about it, the more amazing it is, and the better I can fall on my knees every day and praise the God whom we serve. So I prayed this morning again, I want you to know this, that whatever I say today will help you in some small way be in greater reverence of the God we serve, so you can honor him in your life more fully. That's what it's about. And you might say, well, when you get into all that detail and blow me away with your information, how do I get there from there? Well, you're going to get the big picture, that's what. And I hope get the main points. So, why would I want to talk about junk DNA? Well, I have a very good reason. Because junk DNA is an attack on God, what it is. Because when people started saying, as they did, that most of DNA is junk, and why would God, some creator, make something that's mostly junk? It was an attack on God, and I didn't know how to answer it. And so one of the main points from tonight's lesson, which I made somewhat in a previous lesson about the human eye, you remember, they criticized the design of the eye also. Here's another instance of that, is there will always be things, ladies and gentlemen, that people can do to attack God, always. And there will be things that you don't know how to answer, and it can disturb your own faith if you're not careful, to the point in some people's cases of losing their faith. And my experience over the last 60 years is if you have something that you can't find an answer to, give it some time and let's watch what happens. Tonight's lesson is another illustration of that. So in order to make that point well, I've got to teach you some chemistry, folks. So hang in there, and I think you'll see there's a powerful lesson to be learned from this tonight. All right. I spent too much time last Tuesday on my introduction. I'm getting right into the lesson right now. So I want to go back to our biblical basis for this discussion. The elders invited me to come here and talk about this because they are convinced that this is perfectly a proper thing to do in a church building setting. Because the Bible itself teaches that the invisible attributes of God can be clearly seen by the things that are made. That is the famous argument from design that is done in literature and in philosophical circles. But it's a biblical notion that we can come to believe there's a God by examining the design in the natural world. So that's what I'm doing. And I like to say it's appealing to God's other book of Revelation. This is his book of Revelation. I'm convinced of that. And Sunday, we're going to talk from this book in the lesson on Sunday morning. And I love preaching from this book because obviously you learn much more about God from that book. But he has another book. The book of nature speaks of him also. And that's what we'll turn to tonight. Second thing I wanted to say by way of introduction is Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. What I understand that to mean is faith fills in the gaps from things you can't directly observe. And everybody has a position of faith about where we came from. Everybody. Because nobody was there. No direct observations could be made. So whatever you conclude about where we came from is a position of faith. And it gives substance to what you cannot observe. But can you observe things that lead you to that conclusion? Yes, you can. But in verse 6 he says, without faith it's impossible to please God. For he who comes to God must believe that he is. It doesn't say he must know that he is. He must believe that he is. And that he's a rewarder of those that diligently seek him. So God not only wants you to know that he exists, but he wants you to look for him and follow after him. And he's provided ways for that too. And here's the best one right here. All right. For the rest of our time tonight, we're turning our attention to God's other book, about which I'm most excited because I've taught about it for 50 years. And I'm anxious to share with you some things that I've learned. So, we presented the cell as a wonderful example of design. And I've tried to show you some things about the cell. And I'm sure you remember every detail. But the cell is a self-replicating nanoscale robot. It does so many thousands of millions of things automatically and in great detail and with great success. So I'm not teaching that lesson all again. But the fact is, the cell itself is an amazing example. Inside of that cell is a nucleus. And contained in the nucleus is the DNA that everybody's heard about, that we've been studying since 1953. In fact, before that. And it's been one of the greatest revolutions in the knowledge of mankind about how life works. And it's to that I want to turn tonight. I want to focus in on DNA. And the fact is, class, every cell has in it a signature of God's creative ability. It's full of signs of intelligent design. The cell itself is, but all kinds of things inside of it. And particularly, we're going to look tonight at DNA. And my first task this evening then is to give you a little background on DNA. It was first discovered, its structure, in 1953. How many of you were alive in 53? Raise your hand. Make me feel better. Okay. We have some old timers in here. I was 8 years old in 1953. We were living in Holland at that time, in the Netherlands. My dad was a missionary over there. And so I didn't know much about what was going on in this side of the world. But since that time, I have looked back on that period of time. This is one of the most exciting times in history in terms of knowledge of how life works. And this was one of the great discoveries. And if you're familiar with it at all, you know that the structure they discovered was a double helix. I want to show you just a little bit about that. You see that there's a strand running this way and then another strand running that way, and they're wrapped around each other. And that's the structure Crick and Watson discovered in 53 that gave them the Nobel Prize, and which has unleashed, ladies and gentlemen, a massive amount of study and information about life, because it's the building block. And you'll notice that there are crossbars, see here, and in this picture, there's 4 different colors up there. You see them? In terms of the pieces of the crossbars. And I've labeled them here in color. The green I've labeled thymine. The yellow I've labeled cytosine. The blue adenine, and the red guanine. Now, I'm not going to go into detailed chemistry with you, but these two, thymine and cytosine, are called pyrimidines. That's thrown in free of charge. Adenine and guanine are called purines. And the interesting thing about the purines and the pyrimidines is they can fit together. One pyrimidine with one purine. And their chemistry is so designed that adenine and thymine make a partnership. Cytosine and guanine make a partnership. So it's A and T and C and G. Wherever you have a C, combined with it will be a G. And wherever you have an A, combined with it will be a T. So it's like love and marriage and a horse and carriage. They go together. And if you were in my chemistry class, you would learn precisely why they go together and how it is they fit and what that means chemically. Not this class. But you do need to know there are 4 bases, we call them, that make the cross pieces. Do you see up here that a red one fits with a yellow one? And down here a blue one fits with the green one? That's just the way it is. They're not that color, but that's the way it is. And so that's a basis for our understanding of life, folks. You're going to hear A, T, C, and G a lot when you talk about the chemistry of life. All right. Well, see if you can stay with me while they remove one person from our audience. We wish him the best, of course, and hope everything goes well. This layout, ladies and gentlemen, allows DNA to copy itself and to reproduce itself. That's one of the real key things about life. Life has to be able to reproduce itself, and DNA allows that. Over the next decade, after 1953, scientists found out that DNA contained a language, ladies and gentlemen, and they learned how to decode and read that language. So in every cell of every living thing, there is a language class that we know how to read now. It's a very interesting language. It's a language that's made up of only 3-letter words. Kids, wouldn't that be nice if all you had to learn was 3-letter words? Like and thee and sit. Well, in this language, there are only 3-letter words, and you only have 4 letters to work with: A, C, T, and G. So let me do a little math here with you. If you've got 4 letters to work with, and you can make 3-letter words with them, and there are only 4 letters you can use. You can repeat letters. You can only use those 4 letters, and you can only make 3-letter words. How many words can you make? Anybody have any idea? 4 things taken 3 at a time, and you can have repeats. That's a combination problem for mathematics. The answer is 64, class, because in each position you can have 4 choices, right? 4 in the first position, 4 in the second position, and 4 in the third position. So that's 4 times 4 times 4. There are exactly 64 words in this language, and I'm going to teach them to you. And we learned that it's a code for building proteins and other living things, parts of the living things. So my job for the next few minutes is to give you some idea of how the body builds proteins. Okay? You ready? We start with this. I'm going to pause just a minute. What you see before you is a diagram of the 20 common amino acids that occur in proteins. Every protein those 20. Sorry. I'll tell you what, it's okay, Mom and Daddy. We love to have babies here. You're teaching them from the time they're little bitty what's important. It is nice when you take them out when they cry, though. Thank you. All right. Let me read a few just for fun, okay? Glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, proline, serine. Do you notice most of them end in I-N-E? And that's because that word, ending in an I-N-E, designates an amino acid, pretty much. Not all of them are that way, most of them. And the reason they're called amino acids, I'm going to teach you this much chemistry. Do you see the structure? Can you see that there's an NH3 right there? Notice that there's one of those in every one of these. NH3. You see it? Or NH2 sometimes. That's called an amine group. Amine. So every one of them has an amine group. The other thing that's common, you see that C-double-O right there? There's a C-double-O in every one of them. That's called an organic acid. So you have an amino acid. 20 common amino acids make up every protein and every living thing. I'm pausing again because that's a very important thing I just told you. The chemistry of every living thing from single-celled organisms to you has the same chemistry. You know what the evolutionists say about that? They say that means we all came from a common ancestor because we have common chemistry. I say we all have a common designer who designed us around the same basic principle. So if I'm going to eat something that's got protein in it, I want it to fit my chemistry, don't I? So he designed things so they have the same chemistry. I had a nice grilled chicken salad tonight. Grilled chicken's got protein in it. I'm glad that the protein in grilled chicken has the same chemistry as my protein. Doesn't that make sense? It does. Okay. So here we go. Every protein is a combination of those 20. If you were in my chemistry class in biochem, you would memorize all that. And you would learn why each one of them has the properties they do. I'm going to tell you, class, if you want to be healthy, you got to have these amino acids in your body because they build proteins. And if you don't have proteins, you're dead because proteins do everything. Got to have proteins. Your body produces some of these. Some of them you have to take in to get your amino acids. It's very much like the 26 letters of an alphabet, like our alphabet. Every word in English is made up of a combination of those 26 letters, right? Even anti-disestablishmentarianism. That's a combination of the 26 letters of our alphabet, right? Well, every protein's a combination of those 20 in a string. Okay? Here's the genetic code, class. Everybody has eyes up here, if you would. Do you see up here that I have 3-letter words all the way through this chart? There's exactly 64 words on this chart. The first word up here is TTT. That means the first letter is thymine, the second letter is thymine, and the third letter is thymine. TTT. How do you pronounce that? This is a non-spoken language. How about TAT? You can pronounce that. That's T, thymine, adenine, and thymine. 3 in a row. That's TAT. And all the rest of these 3-letter words is every combination you can make with 4 letters taken 3 at a time. And what we've learned about that, class, is every one of those 3 letters means something. Now look up here. TTT, what does that mean? It means PHE. That doesn't help much, does it? It means. Well, class is an abbreviation for one of those 20 amino acids I just showed you. And if you'd memorized them like I wanted you to, you would know that PHE is is an abbreviation for phenylalanine. So, what that means, class, is that when you see TTT in a DNA molecule, that means get me a phenylalanine, which is an amino acid. And so do the rest of all of these. So there is a code in here for all 20 amino acids, plus a few extras. You see these three right here? It says term. That's a terminator. TAA means terminate. That means stop. So there's three codes for terminating. There's codes for every one of the amino acids, and this one right here, you see that ATG right there? That also means start. So built into this code, there's a word for all 20 amino acids with repetitions, and there's words about stopping and starting. Amazing. DNA class has a code in it that teaches your body how to build a protein. All 20 amino acids are here, and they're made up of these four. I showed you those before. All right. That's just the code. What does your body do with it? Well, look at this diagram with me. Up here's the DNA, and the code is in it, and it is copied. Here's the DNA, and the code in the DNA is copied, and it becomes messenger RNA. You've heard that word a lot because you have a messenger RNA vaccine now, don't you, for COVID-19. We're not going there tonight. But messenger RNA is a copy of the information on the DNA. You see it right there? It's making the copy. Then what has to happen is your body and the cell has to mature this messenger RNA, and then it's ready to go outside the nucleus and come over here to the ribosomes and build proteins. Now I want you to notice something right here because it's important to my next point later on. You see those little white areas right there in that copy? Let me blow this up. Here's the DNA that's being copied. Here is the messenger RNA, and you see those little white areas? In the 70s and 80s, believe in God in the first place. But a very common criticism was, introns, that's just a bunch of junk that's got to be snipped out, and you don't even use it. They figured it was thrown away somewhere. You with me? Did I know how to answer that? No, I didn't. Didn't make any sense right then. But that's the truth. That's what happens. And we're going to talk about that before this class is over. All right. But the next thing I want to do is show you a video of how the body in the cell builds a protein. Now, I'm going to do this fast because I want to get on to the other. But you need to see this. So you ready? I need to forward it. All right. Folks, I'm glad our brother was already removed because I really want you to listen to this and get the picture. And I'm going to moderate it so you can get the idea of what's happening. So here we go. By the way, if you want to watch this again, go to signatureinthecell.com, and it's right there on the front page. And they have a moderation of it in the background. You can listen to what he has to say. I'm better. But you can listen to what he has to say. So here we go. Here's the DNA. Stop right there. Do you see that you've got a C with a G and an A with a T? Right? And that's the case always throughout the DNA. Whatever letter you have, it's always going to have its complement on the crossbar. Okay? So, part of the reason for that, can I pause here just a moment? When DNA unzips and it exposes one side, the other side is the mirror image of it. So when you want to copy the whole DNA, class, did you know your DNA has to be copied a lot? By the way, you started as one cell, right? A fertilized egg. That's how you started. By the time you were an adult, you had 37 billion cells. Started from one. One split and made two. Each of those two had all the DNA in it. All of it. Then the two became four. All four of those had all the DNA. So that means you're copying the whole DNA. How does that happen? It unzips, and this side provides a copy for that side, and this side provides a copy for that side, and you get the exact copy for the next cell. Amazing. I'm in awe of that. And it does it, folks, without mistakes. No, I can't say that. Once in a while, there are mistakes. But did you know that in your cell, there are some mechanisms for correcting mistakes from copying DNA? There is. Built in. I don't have time to go there. But that's another protein. Okay. Let's go again. Here's the DNA inside the nucleus, and here's what you see. And what's going to happen now as the DNA progresses along here in its happy state. And by the way, there's so much this picture doesn't show you that I don't have time to tell you, but stop right there. What happens is a group of proteins, you see these different color things? Those are different proteins. Collect on the DNA. This whole collection is called RNA polymerase. It's a group of proteins that ride along the DNA and allow it to copy itself. So I think I'm going to get a little class participation here. In order for DNA to make a copy of itself to build proteins, you have to have proteins. Okay? And in the course of this discussion, I want you to repeat that word with me. I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer to almost every question is protein, okay? This easy test. Here is a group of proteins collecting on the DNA in order for the DNA to make its copy. So when you make DNA make copies, you need... Good deal. Thank you. That was really good. All right, here we go. Let's move on. So you can see that's a rather complex set of organisms there. It's a pretty complicated system. Stop right there. This is really more what it looks like. And you see this little strand coming out here to the side? That's your messenger RNA that's made the copies. But it's down inside here in this glob of, right, or it wouldn't happen. All right? Now, the next thing we're going to do is go down inside that blob and take a look. So here we go. Now we're down inside the blob. Stop right there. Can you see that the DNA is unzipped? The reason it's unzipped, class, is because that RNA polymerase, which is allowed it to unzip. And there's a whole chemical explanation for that. But it unzips it a piece at a time. And then this side that's exposed gets copied. So if you see an A right here, what are you going to have across here when it's copied? A T. And if there's a C here, what's this going to be? A G. Every time, except on messenger RNA, the T becomes a U. That's a whole other question. I'm not talking about that. Okay? But the fact is, it's making a copy of that information one little element at a time. They call them nucleotides. One nucleotide at a time is added on as it's making that copy. Remember, this is down inside the glob of... Thank you, good. By the way, can I go off script here again? When you unzip something, do you ever have trouble zipping it back up? Sometimes. What do you have to do? Kind of stretch it out so it works better? Did you know that unzipped DNA can be a problem? Did you know there's another molecule that helps it keep from getting tangled up? We could call it the untangle protein. So there's another protein in this process that helps DNA, as it unzips, be able to zip back together without getting tangled up. And what was that, class? Another? Yeah, right. I'm not going to ask you to keep count, but it's a lot. All right, here we go. Keep going. So now you see one little nucleotide at a time is coming up and copying what's there, and it's building a strand. Stop right there. One of the problems with this video is it's way too slow, because that copying that takes place in microseconds. And it's happening while you're sitting there tonight listening to me. Every cell in your body is making proteins right now. That's why you get tired even if all you're doing is sitting. Keep going. Just know that goes a whole lot faster than that. And then it releases the messenger RNA out into the cytoplasm of the nucleus. Stop right there. And it migrates to the cell wall. You remember it's down inside the nucleus? The ribosomes, where the action is outside the nucleus. So it's got to migrate. Guess what it takes to help it migrate, class? Exactly right. All right, now go ahead. It comes up to the wall here, and stop right there. Every cell wall in the nucleus, don't just let anything in and out of those cells. Are you kidding? Any respectable nuclear wall is going to stop certain things and let certain things through. Guess what it takes, class, to decide who gets through? Watch what happens as this messenger RNA comes up to this cell wall, and there's a hole in it. See it? But it's being guarded, class. Go ahead. Here it comes. Comes up to the hole, and this protein says, oh, I know you. You're welcome. Come right on through. And so it does. Stop right there. Here you are outside the nuclear wall, and there's another hole on the other side. Guess what sits at that hole to guard it? Another protein. That's exactly right. And by the way, I don't think I stressed this enough. Every one of these proteins I'm talking about has a specific task, and it carries it out. Sounds like a design to me. Okay, so here comes the messenger RNA outside the nuclear wall. Go ahead. It comes out into the cytoplasm, and it's picked up by the ribosome, which closes in on it. The ribosome is made up of RNA and proteins. Stop right there. We're down inside the ribosome now. You see, I don't have time to tell you about the ribosomes, but that's another group of with RNA. It's a complex thing, and it's huge. But this is where the building takes place. So inside the ribosome, here comes the messenger RNA. Do you see the code here? GAC, AGA, CUA, CCG, ACC. Each one of those three-letter words means an amino acid, right? I taught you that. And when you have a string of amino acids, you have a protein. This is the code for how to make a string of amino acids when you're building a protein. Here's what has to happen. This group of molecules, called transfer RNAs, have to bring up the specific amino acid out of your cells. You have no amino acids in your cells, you're not building proteins. So it picks up the specific amino acid that goes with that particular transfer RNA, and it has the code that is exactly the mirror image of that code right there. So if CAG class is isoleucine, then that's exactly what this transfer RNA brings in. Now it's finished with that one. It's going to read the next three-letter word, and it's going to bring in this particular transfer RNA with whatever that code means. Well, what is AGA? Do you remember, class, from what I showed you a while ago? Of course not. You didn't memorize all that. But you get out your genetic code and you look up AGA, and it'll tell you exactly what that is. And once that one's finished, you have two amino acids bonded together. That's a two-chain protein. Now I'm going to let it go for a little while. Go ahead. So number 2 is dismissed, then number 3 is dismissed, comes number 4. You know what's wrong with this thing? It's going way too... You know how fast this goes, class? Your body can build 1,000 proteins in a minute while you're sitting there. Stop right there. You see the protein coming out the bottom here? Here's the messenger RNA that goes back out into the cytoplasm, and it can be reused, class. And all those transfer RNAs that brought all those specific amino acids in, they're reused also. Henry Ford never built a machine, a factory to build a machine like this.